Am I the a-hole for telling my mother that it was her decision to have kids? I, 28 female, have never had a good relationship with my mother. She and my dad married young and had 4 kids. Me, 2 sisters, 27 female and 24 female, and my brother, 20. My parents' marriage was highly toxic, and they divorced when I was 17 because my mother had an affair with her now second husband. Mother and hubby number 2 have 1 child together, female 10. Ever since we were kids, my siblings and I have been subjected to my mother's mantra of, "I gave you life, so you should be freaking grateful." From the time we were young, my mother would use the above phrase to gain anything. From our sweets, our birthday money, to taking a percentage of payslips when we joined 6th form, ages 16 to 18 education in the UK. My siblings and I have been fortunate enough that our paternal grandparents are well off, and they paid for our university fees, minus my brother who chose not to attend university. However, our grandparents are in declining health and have decided to give us grandchildren our inheritance early so they can watch us enjoy it, and not have this trust to put on my dad to sort out our portion when their time comes. My brother decided to buy a car with his and save the rest to travel. My 2 sisters are spending it on their growing families, while I decided to use my portion for a mortgage deposit, and I'm weeks away from buying my first home. My mother is enraged at our choices. When she found out that her ex-in-laws had given us all money, she yelled at how it was unfair that our younger half-sister missed out, and how we have a rule that she gets a percentage of our inheritance, because I gave them life and they need to learn to be freaking grateful. And then extended it saying how we never appreciated her sacrifices for us. How we butchered her body, drained her mental state, and caused her divorce because our dad was too focused on us rather than paying attention to her, which caused her to cheat. I snapped at my mother and told her to shut the heck up. I told her that we didn't ask for her to bring us into this world because she chose to have kids. And if I had a chance to change who my biological mother was, I would, because she's always been a crappy one. Now she's telling the family that I don't appreciate her struggles with parenting, and I've upset her so badly that she's unable to focus on areas of her life that need her. For example, my half-sister, her job as a nurse, etc. My sibling sided with me, but our half-sister has sent me texts saying I need to say sorry for being mean. My stepdad, not a word I want to use, has called me an a-hole for speaking to my mother harshly. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your mom is toxic, and she likely royally ruined her youngest daughter by making her believe she's a victim of your grandparents' generosity. Right? Your mom told your 10-year-old half-sister a skewed version of what happened and stirred up drama. Your mom may have even sent the text from your sister calling you mean. She is a monster, not a hole. I don't understand her mentality. You children must give me all your money because I choose to have you? And a bit about a half-sister makes even less sense. My daughter missed out on money from people she has no biological or familial relation with. Mom's a narcissist. Everything's always about her and only her. Normal person logic is just irrelevant here. Your mom's affair partner needs to sit down and shut up. Your half-sister is not related to your grandparents. She deserves nothing. Your mother is way off base here. Your mom cheated on their son. Your paternal grandparents are probably not her biggest fans. Your mom can go pound sand, not stay home. Opie's mom needs to keep both her mouth and legs shut. She decided to give birth. She decided to cheat. Nobody owes their parents for giving them life. We are usually grateful for what they do for us during our lives, and she obviously has not done much. You owe her nothing, Opie. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You're absolutely correct. She gave life to you. That's correct. But that doesn't mean you are her slaves. She failed you as a parent, didn't provide for you, didn't show you any love or support. She's a vampire. Get some garlic and keep her away from your life. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents why I hate my name? Okay, so basically I, female 16, have 3 older siblings. John, Julia, and Jess. John and Julia are twins and Jess was about 3 years younger than them. Jess had a lot of medical issues as a kid according to my parents. She was born too early and had a lot of breathing issues, etc. And 2 months before I was born, when Jess was 4 and the twins were 7, Jess died. I was never told exactly how, but I knew it had something to do with her medical issues. My parents were distraught and when I was born I was named Jess, after my older deceased sister. See, the issue was that being directly named after the dad-daughter starts up problems. My older siblings refuse to call me by my name. They call me by my middle name or just don't refer to me at all. And as a kid, I always wanted to be friends with them. But they're a good 7 years older and have apparently already bonded enough with the original Jess that they don't really want to interact with me. My parents are even weirder. They put photos of original Jess on my birthday and look like they're about to cry whenever they say my name. They constantly bring up Jess. If I get a bad grade, they'll go on about how Jess would have done so much better. Or if I said I was feeling sick, they told me that I couldn't be as sick as Jess was and to stop faking it for attention. Don't even get me started on my parents' friends because they just keep giving me weird looks. I can't live out the shadow of original Jess, which sounds horrible but honestly it's true. A few days ago, my mom got a letter from my old school where they used the nickname Anna, my middle name, and my mother blew up on me. She called me ungrateful and said I was ruining my sister's image and good name and destroying her soul or something. And I blew up on her too, explaining why I hated using the name Jess and how it was stupid naming me that, and how I can't keep living in the shadow of a kid who died nearly 17 years ago. Harsh, I know, but I was so angry. My mom, dad, family, friends, and even my own friends are telling me that I'm the a-hole here, that I shouldn't have gone off on her, but my siblings are saying that I said what needed to be said. And to be honest, I like having their approval. So am I the a-hole for telling my mom why I hate my name? Edit. Reading the comments, I do have to note that I love my parents. They've been great parents except for the name thing. I don't really want to go no contact because they really are great parents. Like them moving across the country for me because I found a performing arts school. But honestly, I understand my siblings as kids not wanting anything to do with me. If I was in their position, I wouldn't want to either. And also, all the names are fake. My name isn't actually Jess, but I do appreciate all the J-name jokes. Not the a-hole. Not even a little bit. Honestly, I think it's super twisted that they named you after her. They robbed you of your own identity because they hadn't processed their grief. My thoughts exactly. The parents are awful for doing that. Right. Opie's definitely not the a-hole. In fact, this whole story reads like the beginning of good creepypasta or no sleep. I hope that they can find some peace and that Opie continues to use her own unique middle name. Also, good on her siblings for standing behind her on this issue. Not the a-hole. Why would anyone name their youngest kid after older late sibling? And what image does your late sister have? She died at 4. Your parents are projecting unhealthily and robbing you of your own identity. As a mother who has lost a child, I can understand using the child's name as a middle name for a new baby, the way we honor other relatives, including those who have died. A first name? No one should have expected Opie to go by that name. Next story. Am I the a-hole for cutting off support to my daughter? I, 52 male, have 3 children with my ex Tracy, 50 female, Michael, 28 male, Linda, 25 female, and Victoria, 23 female. We split because Tracy had an affair with Stan, 55 male, to whom she is now married. We never shared with the kids the reason for the divorce as I didn't want them to blame either of us. This backfired, as the kids saw their mom move out of the house into a small apartment and me keep living in the house and remarried 2 years after the divorce. So they saw me as the bad guy. Stan and Tracy let them pretty much do whatever they wanted. And I had to be the disciplinarian who made sure homework was done, appointments were made, and deadlines were met. My 2 oldest eventually came to realize that I was not a bad guy. My son, when he found out that his mother had put nothing away for college for him as outlined in our divorce decree, and she told him to take out loans. While my daughter, when she realized that her grades were going to keep her out of her desired program in school. My youngest never came around though, so it was a surprise when her boyfriend asked for my blessing to ask for her hand. When I expressed that I didn't think she'd care about my blessing, he said she insisted on it. She began spending time with me, being polite to my wife, and it felt wonderful to have my daughter back. I went with them to book the venue and they'll be getting married next summer. I paid a deposit and a first installment. Then I noticed that she was becoming less communicative again recently, ignoring my texts or giving one-word replies and not coming over as much. On Monday, my son sent me a post from Instagram. My youngest had an engagement party this weekend to which I was not invited. One of the photos was her with Stan and it read, "Anyone can be a father, but it takes a real man to be a dad." This amazing guy has been my dad for 15 years, even though he didn't have to be. I am so blessed to have him walk me down the aisle next year. #daddy's girl, #future Mrs. X. My kids wanted for nothing their entire lives because I never let them go without. Even when they wouldn't talk to me, I made sure their needs were met. I texted Tracy to ask why I was not included, and she replied that Victoria didn't want my wife there because she wanted a drama-free day. My wife has literally never started drama in her life. I asked if Stan and I would both be walking her down the aisle. Tracy didn't respond, but Victoria called me up demanding to know what my problem was. I repeated my question, and she replied that no, Stan, her dad, would be walking her down the aisle. I told her that if that's what she wanted, I would be fine with it. I told her to let Stan know the next payment for the wedding is due in November. Stan and Tracy do not have the money for this wedding, and I think I'm being an a-hole. Linda says if I do this, Victoria will never speak to me again. Michael is on my side. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. If you aren't her dad in her eyes, then why would you pay for the wedding? And here is a novel idea. The bride and groom can pay for the wedding instead of the parents. I'm recently engaged and wouldn't dream of asking my parents for help paying for the wedding. Yeah, I was married last year and we had a wedding we could afford. I don't know why my parents would need to pay for my event. Not the a-hole. Maybe it's time you told your kids the real reason behind the divorce. Right? They're grown now. Time to rip off the band-aid. And to hell Stan/mom. What a sack of moldy douches they make. Not the a-hole. This. Don't hide things from your kids when you divorce. As a kid whose parents did this, it leads to nothing but badness. Be honest with them. But also, as others have said, she absolutely used you for the money, which is frankly disgusting. Get your deposit money back and let them pay for it themselves. I don't understand why it seems so many parents don't tell their children the reasons why. I left my ex when my daughter was 3. He's an alcoholic. It was very easy to say, Daddy is sick and was not nice to Mommy, but we still love you very much. She still knows the reason. She still loves both of us. You don't have to alienate a parent to be honest with your children. Full disclosure, I'm not Michael, but I'm on your side too, OP. The truth about your divorce was ugly and unflattering to Tracy, so you apparently agreed to hide it forever. OP, not just till the kids were grown, but forever. That decision has bitten you in the butt and cost you your relationship with at least one of your adult kids. Please, sit down with Linda and Michael and tell them the truth about the divorce. Show them the bratty IG posting from Victoria and say, you know, I love all of you, but everyone has limits. I feel used and disrespected and I'm not going to put up with it anymore. If Victoria wants to talk to me about this directly, fine, but I'm not willing to bankroll an event where I'm cast as an unwelcome stranger. Not the a-hole for keeping your money in your wallet and finding something else to do on the wedding day. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for asking my parents why my wedding gift was significantly smaller than my sister's? My husband and I, 28 male, 28 female, got married recently and my sister, 31 female, and I were discussing the wedding after returning from the honeymoon. We are very fortunate to have grown up in a household where my parents made very good money. They were generous with us, but raised my sister and I to be hardworking and not dependent on them as adults. My sister and I both do well financially, as does her husband, 36 male. My husband loves his job, but it is not one that has a ton of earning potential. He and I met in college, so I've always known this was his plan, and we are very happy with our setup. During my discussion with my sister, she asked me if my husband and I were planning to use the wedding gift money from my parents to do a particular renovation for which we've been saving, but I was very confused, because the gift, while extremely generous and appreciated, wasn't nearly enough to cover that. She told me how much she had been gifted, and it was more than twice what we had been given. After that, I couldn't stop thinking about why I had gotten less, so my sister encouraged me to ask, and during a call with my mom, I couldn't stop myself from asking. Her response was that it wasn't my business, but since I did ask, my sister has chosen a partner that can accommodate the lifestyle she's used to, so they've gifted her accordingly. They also gifted me accordingly to the lifestyle I've chosen. We are not entitled to gifts of any size in life, but I still can't help feeling hurt that my parents feel that my husband and I are less deserving than my sister and her husband based on income. Meanwhile, my parents are angry at both my sister and me for having this discussion and bringing it to them. Not the whole. There's a lot of reasons that would have made sense and been okay, including a simple, we're not in the same financial situation we were in when we gave your sister her wedding gift. But to make it about how much you guys make is basically a passive-aggressive way of saying, you got less because you picked a partner we feel is beneath you. Amen. Wait for the shocked Pikachu face when OP goes no contact and then have kids. It will be cruel to not let Grammy and Grampy see their cheer-ups. Not the a-hole, and I don't understand your parents' reasoning. Seems like they just want to punish you for choosing a spouse that makes less money than they would have preferred. Honestly, if your sister's husband is so well off, why would you need additional money as a gift? That was my first thought and response. I've seen this firsthand in my extended family. Some members are very well off, and for some reason, money attracts money. If you are rich, people seem to give money to you since you are seen as good with money and more deserving, and those that don't do as well seem to be given far less. It's bizarre, but in some ways it makes sense, since those who are good with money will likely grow it, and those who aren't are more likely to blow through it more quickly. That said, it should be considered those who have plenty of money don't need more gifted to them, and those who are struggling should be given a little help from time to time, unless they are wasting it on drugs or gambling, etc. What's weird logic? Your brother-in-law makes more so we gift them more? Your husband makes less so we gift you less? Sounds backwards. Also sounds like they're punishing you for choosing who you married. That was my thought. My family makes less money than my sisters. My parents are always giving me things they aren't giving her. We also have kids and they don't. But my sister nor her husband couldn't care less who gets what. Am I the a-hole for not sharing my stepdad's inheritance with my brother? My 25 female dad passed when I was very young, and my mom married my stepdad Lee when I was 5. Lee is wealthy, and my mom never had to work, and I was given everything growing up. The only thing we never received was acceptance from Lee's family, as they were not pleased that Lee chose to marry a widow with a child. Lee and I were close though, and he continued to care for me even after my brother Sam, 18, was born. My mom clearly favored Sam, and didn't really focus much on me. Lee's relatives warmed up to my mom a little with the birth of Sam, but I was still treated like something invisible. Sam was often invited to Lee's relatives' houses to play, and he and I are not very close. I decided to go to university overseas, and Lee gave me enough money that I didn't have to work or worry financially. He also was the only one calling or writing me regularly, while I talked to my mom and Sam like once every couple of months during my university days. After graduation, Lee wanted me to come home, but I wanted to work and be on my own for a bit. Then the pandemic happened and I was unable to fly back. When the lockdown was over, my family came to visit me once and left when I preferred to continue working where I am. Lee came to visit me a few more times by himself. A few months ago, Lee passed away from a disease he never let anyone know he had. In his will, he left his businesses and house and most valuables to his relatives. My mom almost nothing, though she can keep what he has already given her. 2 cars, jewelry, and cash of about $60,000 as my mom never legally married him. Sam about $150,000, and the rest of the money to me. It was 7-figure US dollars, a life-changing amount. Turns out Sam is not Lee's biological child, which he found out only recently. My mom and Sam were mad, of course, and demanded that I share money with them. I said I'm willing to put the money in some low-risk investments, and we can split the gain, but it's not good enough. They want at least 25% each of what Lee left me. I argued that it's not like they are left destitute. Sam can still go to a good university if he cares enough for further education, and my mom have enough money to get her own place. And the investments will give us all incomes for the long term. They called me greedy and planned to take legal action, but Lee's relatives told them that they could make my mom and Sam's lives very difficult if they try to give me a hard time and go against Lee's wishes. I intend to do as I promised them, splitting the gains from the investment with my mom and Sam. I won't let them touch the money Lee left me though, because I don't trust them to not go through that money in just a few years. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You aren't his biological daughter, but a daughter he chose. Splitting the gains is already nice from you, but don't give your mother too much. Otherwise, she will pay a lawyer to sue you. Not the a-hole. What if the roles were reversed and you barely got anything? Would they share with you? This. If Opie shares the gains, where or when will it end? Her mother and brother will feel entitled for a lifetime, when Lee specifically left that money for Opie. Not the a-hole. The best way to honor Lee's wishes is to let them have exactly what he wanted, and no more. They aren't entitled to what Lee plainly didn't want them to have. That is the best and legal response I would suggest. Why open a can of worms? Just be calm and relax. Just think about why that person left them with so little. Exactly what I was thinking. Based on the post, it seems that Lee definitely had his reasons for doing what he did. Not a-hole. There's a reason you got what you got and they got what they got. Also, good job on Lee's relatives stepping up for you and your late stepdad. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling my mother a freaking monster as she was having a mental breakdown? For a while, I was a single father of 3 lovely boys, ages 7 to 5. When my oldest 2 were 1, my ex-girlfriend and I split after I found out she cheated multiple times. We decided to co-parent, but she was incredibly distant from the family. 4 months after she gave birth to my youngest son, she decided that she wasn't ready to be a mother and left. I haven't seen her since. Growing up, my mom envisioned a very specific life plan for me. She's always wanted to control my life, my education, career, and romantic relationships. My mom loved my ex-girlfriend, my son's bio mom. To her, she was the perfect woman. Even after I told her the details of my ex walking out on my family, she still adores her. My mom even blames me for her leaving me. Oh, you must have done something to make her leave. Oh, you probably didn't treat her like a gentleman, etc. It's emotionally taxing, and I don't speak to her much. To her, I'll always be a failure, a disappointment, and she has made her thoughts very clear to me. My girlfriend Fiona and I have been dating for 3 years. When I met her, I wasn't actively looking for a relationship, but I'm so incredibly happy I met her. She's wonderful, and I can't wait for her to officially be a part of my family. The boys love her as well. My youngest even call her mom, and I love her. My mom, of course, does not. She does not like Fiona at all because she's not my ex, and thank God she isn't. And Fiona will never be good enough for her. My dad invited us to celebrate my mom's birthday. My dad told me that if I brought Fiona, he would ensure that there would be no drama. I wish it was a nice, calm afternoon spent with family. But my mom is a heavy drinker, and late into the afternoon after having way too much to drink, she starts playfully chasing my son around the yard. He got scared, crying, and runs to Fiona. My mom, extremely drunk, begins to curse out a 7-year-old boy from running away from her. Fiona interjects and yells at my mom that she can't yell at her son. Her words. This sets mom off. After hearing Fiona refer to the children as her own, my mom begins ranting loudly about how Fiona will never be the boys' bio mom, their real mom, and how their real mother would have never poisoned their heads and caused them to be afraid of their own grandmother. Fiona is in shock, but I loudly yell back, "Maybe my kids are scared of you because you're a freaking monster." Fiona, the kids, and I left shortly after. My dad texted me. He told me that I shouldn't have called my mother a monster when she was clearly having a breakdown. My mom is having a hard time accepting Fiona, and hearing Fiona was probably the last straw. He's encouraging me to apologize before my mom apologizes. He wants to clear the air and everything to return to normal, but I don't want to do that. Not the whole. There is a difference between a breakdown and a tantrum. Your mom was having the latter. Personally, I wouldn't want someone in my life who treated me, my significant other, and my kids poorly. I was about to say, that's not a breakdown. That's an angry drunk. I'm somewhat at a loss for words here. Does Opie's dad see nothing wrong with an adult drunkenly chasing a child around until the child flees in terror to a safe adult? After that, it would have to skew severely sideways for me to think Opie could possibly be the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Nope. The father sounds like an enabling doormat, forever singing, "Sit down, you'll rock the boat." Not the a-hole. Your mom was being toxic, and if I were you, I would cut contact with her. I'm happy you seem to have met a lovely woman that sees your kids as her own. I wish you, Fiona, and the kids the best. Do not apologize. Your dad is enabling her behavior. Right. Opie, you need to go no contact with your mom. Your kids do not need to have those memories or such a toxic relationship in their lives. You suffered through it, but they don't need to. Also, marry Fiona. Clearly, she loves your kids and they seem to love her. And then, move. Release the toxicity from your life. Not the a-hole. Your father wants to keep the peace by not holding your mother accountable for her actions. It sounds like a bad environment for your family. You'd be well within your rights to go no contact or low contact with your mother. Spineless fathers and abusive mothers, a much too common occurrence. Everybody sucks here. Your mother for obvious reasons. You for continuing to subject your kids and Fiona to the company of a freaking monster. There's been plenty of history here. Don't act like your mother's behavior was some surprise. If you won't drop contact with your mother, at least interact with her on your own. Next story. Am I the a-hole for sarcastically congratulating my dad? So when I, 17 female, was 5, my dad left my mom and me. Since then, I saw him maybe 3 to 4 times at family functions. And from family, I found out he got married and had other kids. I figured he wouldn't have been a good dad, just because of the type of dad he's been to me my whole life. Yesterday was my great-grandma's 100th birthday, so we were doing a big party for her. A few days ago, I found out from my grandma my dad is going to be there, and more than likely with his kids. I was still going to go though, because I've always been close to my great-grandma. About an hour of me being at this party, my dad, his wife, and their 2 kids walk in. The kids were about 3 and 6 years old. I watched them off and on through the party. My dad was actually being a dad. He was playing with his kids and listening to them, even had cute nicknames for them. Then my dad came up to me and said pretty much, hey Opie, how have you been? It's, been a while. I will admit, I was upset seeing my dad act like the person he never was to me and has never put in the effort. So I said, I'm okay, and then pointed over to his kids and said, congrats on actually being a dad this time around. My dad got mad and said he's sorry, but he can't change the past. But he never even puts up an effort now to call or text me or wants to come to visit me. I then had other family members tell me I need to grow up and get over it, and now be happy for my dad. So am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Get over being abandoned by your father? More than your dad, his family is the a-hole. Clearly, they enabled him. Not a-hole. 100% agree. Your father needs to own his crappy behavior and treat you with the respect you deserve. Also, Opie's still a minor. It's not like she's 35 with kids of her own and the ship has pretty much sailed on being a parent. Dad could absolutely still step up and be a parent to Opie now. But he's got his shiny new family and don't give a hoot, I guess. Absolutely pathetic. Opie's not the a-hole in the slightest. Not the a-hole. The past? Okay, then it's his responsibility to fix it in the present and for the future. His deadbeat bum didn't even try. If anything, you were too nice. Should have given a lot of choice words to him. It's not even the past. Opie is still a minor. He could be co-parenting her right now. Instead, he's treating her like an awkward ex at a high school reunion. Not the a-hole. Abandoned by your father, scorned by your family, plus sarcastic quips. This is the making of a real superhero's origin. So take your wings, my child, and dump buckets of bird poop on your villainous father and his minions, so that their outer appearances may resemble the crap they are on the inside. Not an a-hole. Your words are pure poetry, and true AF to boot. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my son he has to be respectful if he wants to live with us? My ex-wife and I got divorced 13 years ago when our son was 5. 2 years later, she moved to another city about an hour away. Our custody agreement was that our son would stay a month with me and 1 with her. But when the pandemic started, our son moved in with his mom because she lives in a house with a garden. During that time, we talked on the phone a lot and I'd pick him up on weekends. He started uni in April and moved back in with me for that as it's closer for him. I don't expect him to pay rent, but he is supposed to help in the household. Not excessively, but picking up after himself and keeping his room clean. Last October, my girlfriend of 3 years and her daughter who is 5 moved in with me. My son didn't have a problem with that when he decided to move here. Most days, my son has uni until about 4 p.m. and will come home, make himself food and then go to his room to study or go out with friends. The problem is that he often leaves a mess in the kitchen. I told my girlfriend not to clean up after him, as he is old enough to do that himself. But she still does it sometimes when she needs to use the dishes. I get home around 6 p.m., and if I see that there is still a mess, I will confront him about it. He usually grumbles a bit, but eventually cleans it up. Yesterday came home to find the kitchen in absolute chaos and my girlfriend close to tears in the living room. When I asked what happened, she told me my son had once again made himself something to eat but left everything he used out. This time she'd been in a hurry as she wanted to make her daughter a quick lunch before dropping her off at a birthday party and didn't have time to clean up first. When she asked my son if he could put his used dishes away, he apparently got angry and told her to buzz off. He used few more words that I don't want to translate and ended up shutting the door in her face. I went to his room to confront him and he again told me to leave him alone. We had a fight and I told him if he wanted to keep living here, he had to show some respect, not only by cleaning up after himself, but also in the way he talked to my girlfriend. He then left to stay with a friend, but not before calling me an a-hole, and I haven't heard from him since. Part of me is thinking I shouldn't have let him move back because of his behavior. But on the other hand, he is my son, and it's very difficult to find a place to live right now, especially for students. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? If this is really the whole story, not the a-hole, your son should be expected to clean up, and the way this was communicated was not unreasonable. But I feel like there is more to the story. I feel like you and a lot of r/AITA readers usually want there to be more to the story. So it's a nuanced and complicated tale of morality and judgment. But the simplest explanation is often the correct one, and this would not be the first 18-year-old/college kid to be disrespectful to a step-parent and not clean up after themselves. On the flip side, these stories are always curated by one person. You assume that every poster is subjective when it's something many people aren't capable of. Info. Could it be that there is more going on in the background? Did you know your girlfriend prior to living with her? Why is your girlfriend the one always at home? Could it be that she maybe said or did something you don't know about? Does she work and pay rent? Also, you didn't include any ages. How old are you and your girlfriend? Anyway, based on the info you gave, not a-hole. He is acting very entitled. My girlfriend works part-time so she can pick up her daughter from kindergarten, but will go full-time once her daughter gets older. I can't imagine anything serious happening between them without one or the other telling me about it. It isn't like they're spending the whole day together. It's mostly just 2 to 3 hours until I get home, and my son spends most of that time in his room. She does contribute to rent payments. I don't think our ages were relevant, but my son is 18, my girlfriend is 27, and I'm 37. Your requests are reasonable. Clean up after himself and be respectful to other members of the household. Pretty easy asks, in my opinion, for free room and board. If he wants to be a slob, he's an adult. He can find somewhere else to live, not the a-hole. I'm actually surprised at this behavior because when he was staying with just me, he'd always do his chores and never talk to me this way when I reminded him. My kids were like this after their first year at university. They wanted to be viewed as adults, yet trashed the kitchen constantly. If I asked them to clean up, I was called a few choice words and was nagging. It worked out after some persistence on our part. We all laugh a bit about it now. Am I the a-hole for bringing my sister-in-law's wallet to the restaurant when she conveniently always forgets it? My female 28, sister-in-law Amy, female 26, always comes to visit from out of town. She stays with us instead of a hotel and always wants to go to expensive restaurants. She always conveniently forgets her wallet or domes up with some excuses as to why she can't pay her share. She has implied that since I make much more money than her, I should be the one to pay. No, not my husband should pay, but me specifically. I do make a fair amount of money, but not so much that I can treat someone every time they come into town. Nonetheless, in the past, I have just paid a bill and asked her to pay me back. She never has. She had made a reservation at an extremely expensive restaurant last night, and before we left, I made it clear that I wouldn't be paying her bill. This is where I might be the a-hole, and I'll admit I got this move straight from an episode of 2.5 Men. As we were leaving, her and my husband went to the car. I pretended I forgot something and went back inside. I found her wallet sitting right on top of her suitcase. I put it in my purse and we went to the restaurant. When we were done eating, I asked for separate bills. She said no. We only need one bill because she forgot her wallet again. I reached in my purse and said, "This wallet?" She was extremely furious. She said that I should not have touched or grabbed her wallet. So am I the a-hole for taking her wallet and bringing it to the restaurant? Now for the top comments before reading the little update. Not the a-hole, but you totally should have flipped the script. Left your wallet at home. Only brought your license, so she had to cover the whole bill. They never take her out to a restaurant again. Wish I thought of that. Personally, I like the way you did it better. I wish I could have seen her face when she saw the wallet. She made a reservation and invited you. Etiquette says she should be responsible for 100% of that bill, not the a-hole. It's the same principle with the dates. The person who asks and chooses the restaurant, ideally with the other person in mind, then pays the bill, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Awesome power move. But when is your husband gonna step up and make her pay her share? They've bullied and manipulated him like this his whole life. He's gotten so used to it that he doesn't see the bigger issue. Old habits die hard. I'm trying to help him stand up for himself, but it's an uphill battle. Fish don't realize they're wet until they got onto land. You need to pluck your hubby from that toxic pond. Opie, you need to mosey over to r/justknowmother-in-law and to a therapist website. I have several cringe mother-in-law stories that I've wanted to post to that sub. I just might do it. Little update. Amy just called me. She saw this post and she yelled at me for bad-mouthing her on the internet. Honestly, I don't care. Amy, hopefully reading all these comments is a wake-up call for you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my brother out over a joke? I, 25 male, and my girlfriend Ava, 25 female, have been dating for 2 years now, and we recently moved in together. Due to the pandemic starting around the time we began dating, she'd never met my older brother Jared, 36 male, till now. For context, Ava was involved in a pretty bad car crash when she was 16. While stopped at a red light, she was rear-ended by a drunk driver. I've seen the pictures and they're pretty bad, so I'll spare the details. Ava made it out alive with a fractured hip, broken nose, concussion, and some pretty sizable scars. Because of the accident, Ava still goes to physical therapy for her hip and has a bad memory. If it's not written down, it goes in one ear and out the other. Her words, not mine. Yesterday morning, Ava left pretty early for her appointment. She has forgotten her notebook at home, which has all her important info and lists for the day. So when she got home, she was shocked to see Jared in the apartment. It took a minute or so to remind her what was going on. When she remembered, she smiled and went to introduce herself to Jared. Jared laughed at her and said, "I didn't know you were dating the fish from Nemo. At least she's not a fatty." Ava was reasonably shocked by this and tried to continue on with introducing herself. Jared said he didn't need to know her name because he was going to call her Dory. He then made a joke about Ava's scar. She was wearing a tank top, so you can see the scar going from her right shoulder down her arm. The second Jared said that, I got super angry and kicked him out, telling him he wasn't welcome in our house and not to contact me. All day my parents have been calling and telling me I'm overreacting and should apologize and talk to Jared again. Ava is thankful I kicked him out, and our friends agree I did the right thing. I feel bad now, like maybe my reaction was a little out of line and over the top. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I'm not sure why this needs to be said, but defending your girlfriend from ableism is always the right play. Until or unless Jared apologizes genuinely, as in actually understands he was wrong and why. I'd go further and just stop associating with him altogether. Honestly, you would be the a-hole if you just let this slide and acted like nothing happened. Also, who starts saying all this bullying stuff to someone they just met? Oh right, jackasses. Not the a-hole. Your brother is a huge a-hole, and some other really choice words that would get me in trouble here. I'd go no contact with him over this. There was absolutely no excuse for his bad behavior. And tell your parents that they raised a bad seed, and if they keep defending him, go no contact with them as well. What kind of people enable such atrocious behavior? Defend a horrible behavior and a person perpetuating said bad behavior. Do apples not fall far from the tree, or is he the golden child? He's the God-given golden child who can do no wrong. That explains a lot. Hope his child doesn't take after him. By the way, Opie, you should have named him Richard in the post. You know, because he acts like one. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my in-laws they have to call before visiting? Recently, my wife, 29 female, and I, 32 male, bought a house. I told her family that they are welcome if they want to visit. They just have to ask first. And because we have a newborn baby, I also told them that for now we will be hosting only short visits from the baby's grandparents, with no more than 3 people at the same time. I've never been a social person. I've never visited anyone before asking or being invited, and nobody has ever visited me without asking first. Not even my parents. I thought that was a common rule of basic education, but who knows? That's why I'm asking if I'm the a-hole. As soon as the baby was born, they started coming without asking, staying from morning till evening and regularly making a mess in our kitchen. I told them that we don't need help. I work from home and my wife is on maternity leave, but they are welcome to visit. On Sunday, my wife's parents, siblings, and nieces showed up. We were asleep, and they called like 20 times. After that, they started sending pictures of our entrance saying they're outside. Finally, they woke me up. I went out and told them we were asleep. They wanted to go in, but I assumed they saw my face at a time and just left. Yesterday, my wife was not at home. I was changing the baby's diaper and suddenly my father-in-law starts to video call me like crazy. I finished baby duties and called him back, and he was angry AF and yelled at me why wouldn't I open the freaking door. That was it. I waited until my wife came back and talked to her father and mother. I told them that they have to ask/call before coming. My wife's mom freaked out and told me that if she has to call, she'll never come back. My wife's dad was like, "Dude, I called you like 5 times." So I told him what's the freaking purpose of calling if he does it when he's already outside. It's our home, our rules, our privacy. So they got pretty mad, and that made my wife upset. She agrees with me. Everyone has to call before visiting. We could be busy, or not at home, or not wanting to see anyone at a time. But her parents and siblings seemed so casual about it that I'm starting to doubt if I'm the a-hole. And everyone can show up to everyone's place anytime. Not the a-hole. It's our home, our rules, our privacy. Nail hit squarely on the head. Who has ever told them this is okay? You never show up to someone's house uninvited expecting to go inside, unless you've been explicitly been told that it's okay. And when they have a newborn, is the exact wrong time to do this. Not the a-hole. I think it's basic manners to call before you come. It's your house. They either respect your rules or don't come. That's what I said. Ask them if you need to get your attorney involved. Have cease and desist letters sent to them, restraining orders if needed, as well as their arrests. I totally get you. What's stopping me is that this will hurt my wife and my relationship. Maybe that's what they're looking for. Not the a-hole. Since they are so disrespectful and can't figure out how to call first, I would make a new rule. Her parents are not allowed to visit unless personally invited by you or your wife. They're not welcome. No more self-invites regardless of calls. They can come when they're invited. That's what I said first, but my wife didn't agree. Since this is a marriage, I told her, okay, I'm gonna do my part. They don't have to be invited. They just have to call/ask first, but they still won't. Next story. Am I the a-hole for saying no to helping my sister-in-law's foster kid? I'm 26 male and married to my amazing wife Leah, 25 female, and we are expecting our first baby in November. I'm a foster kid. I aged out of the system after a pretty awful experience with the system. I have trauma. Lots of trauma. It's not something I can talk about easily, and Leah and my therapist are the only people I have opened up to, and I try not to burden my wife with this. She understands and never pushes, but she has told me that I can tell her anything when I need to. Her sister Janet, 33 female, and brother-in-law Michael, 37 male, are foster parents and biological parents. Their first foster kid has been with them for about 4 months now, and the kid is struggling. The kid hasn't told them much about their experience, but they assume, probably correct, that their time in foster care has not been very positive. Janet wanted me to take her foster kid under my wing and speak to them about being a foster kid and basically act like a therapist. She said based on my own history in the system, I would be the best person to help. But I don't feel up for that. I don't think I can deal with someone else's trauma related to foster care on top of my own. And I don't feel like I could talk about my experiences either or bring up my trauma to the child. Janet and Michael did not like my response. Leah and Janet fought. Then Janet and I disagreed very strongly on it. She told me I was an a-hole, and as a grown man and soon-to-be father, I should be willing to help a child. And how can I expect to be a good father when I have so much trauma that I cannot put aside for a child in need? I feel bad about a kid, and I feel some guilt. But am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. This child needs professional therapy, and they have no right to capitalize on your pain for the sake of avoiding that expense. They chose to foster, so this is their responsibility. Put that guilt aside. It's crazy to me because at least in my experiences with the system, the state usually had the kids in therapy anyway, or maybe that was just our situation with my niece. But the kids usually had medical expenses covered, and I thought therapy fell in with that. They need to get this kid professional help for sure. Not Daehol. They don't understand trauma or the risks that you've been taking with your own mental health. They don't understand that far from finding it helpful, their foster child might be upset by it. If you don't feel able to do it, then setting that boundary is important. I actually think your response shows a lot of self-awareness and was the healthiest one you could make, talking as a former kid of the system. Not Daehol. You are neither obligated nor frankly qualified to be this kid's therapist or mentor. You would be harming yourself and potentially doing more damage to him than the system already has. This young person needs a proper therapist and/or a willing, trained mentor, not a reluctant layman who just happens to be handy and to have suffered some similar trauma. I have never been in the foster system, so this is partly guesswork and partly observation of peers who were in the system. One of the things the system seems to strip away and discard is the ward's sense of privacy. Strangers often know your story, sometimes pieces of it that you don't, and you don't get a choice. Your sister-in-law's request is another example of that disregard, however well intended, for the concept of confidentiality. Now, for the last story, am I the a-hole for not helping my sister with her IVF solely because of her husband? My 34 female sister Meg, 31 female, cheated on my ex-brother-in-law, Josh, with his best friend Liam. They did it for over 4 years until Josh found out and broke up. Liam and Meg have been officially together for 5 years now. My ex-brother-in-law has been my best friend since elementary school, and my sister knew him through me. And despite me saying it would make things uncomfortable, she insisted on hitting on him until he noticed and they started dating. My relationship with Meg took a toll on me because I was annoyed with her for doing this to my best friend, but we never cut contact because of my nephew, her son with Josh and my godson. 1 year ago, I received a large amount of money from inheritance, and because I have a good financial condition, I decided that half would go to help my parents and siblings. My parents received 50% and my 4 siblings, 12.5% each. My parents decided to renovate the house. 2 of my brothers paid off their house debts. Meanwhile, my other sister asked if she could pay for IVF treatment with her girlfriend with that money, and I said yes. At no instance did I control how they wanted to spend their money. Well, Meg was super happy with my help and talked about paying for IVF with Liam because of his infertility, and I hesitated. I'm still best friends with Josh, and I can tell you what they did with him cost years of therapy to get him to start thinking about dating someone. I don't talk to Liam 99% of the time, and I only helped my sister, because after all, she had my nephew. I didn't go to the wedding, and I always made it very clear that it wasn't a relationship I would support, but they are free. So I told her that I didn't feel comfortable giving her the money for this, as it involves Liam, her and their relationship specifically, so I'd rather help in some other way. Renovate house, pay off debts, or refurbish the house, and that I would take double care that the money didn't go to that. She started screaming, telling me to get over something that had nothing to do with me, and that was years ago. And that I was treating her and my other sister differently because of the past. We argued a lot, and I decided to create a fund for my godson that only he could handle at age 18 instead of helping her. Well, this created even more mess, because she claims that I helped everyone but her, and that I was cruel in denying helping her to have another child when they can't naturally. I really don't feel comfortable doing this. Am I the a-hole? By the way, they didn't receive this inheritance. She never received the money, because it went to my nephew's fund before she ever received. Well, I'll put it here. They told me about the plans. I didn't ask, just because they were excited. After I told them at a family dinner about the money, I said, you can renovate your house, pay your debts, and my other sister asked if she could use it for something else, IVF, on another day. So Meg found out, then talked to me before I gave any money. Not the a-hole. It's your inheritance money. You can get to choose what to do with it. I think setting up a fund for your nephew is a brilliant idea. If she wants another kid so bad, she can go cheat on Liam. Haha, that's awesome. OP, not the a-hole. Your money. I like the trust fund idea. Not the a-hole. Okay, so you are treating your 2 sisters differently. So what? One of them didn't put your best friend through the ringer. The money is yours. You could have chosen to keep the money. You could have given it to Josh, an art museum, or the local animal shelter. Meg doesn't have any say in what you do with the money. If she really wants another child, she could try adoption. Also, by helping her nephew, by proxy OP still helping her sister. Meg is so obsessed with starting a new little family that she's forgetting about the son she already has. Her pouting about the money going to her son is indicative to the quality of her parenting. If she cannot afford IVF, then she cannot afford another child. Sorry. Absolutely not day home. I hope Josh is doing